Hello there, welcome. Glad you're joining me again today on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Hey, we have a good program today in light of what's going on in our nation and around the world and the dialogue that's taking place today and the disruption that's occurring in cities across the country, the issues that are being discussed, the issues that are being debated, the issues that are motivating people to behave quite differently than they have in the past, bringing issues to our doorstep as a parent and as a family, causing us as families to consider issues that maybe otherwise we wouldn't really consider at all, or certainly not in any consistency or any depth, which today's world is now bringing to the doorstep of every family at home. Issues of diversity, issues of equality, issues of justice, issues of violence, issues of selfishness, issues of other-mindedness, and so on down the line. Issues that as parents we need to address and must consider in the context of our home. We've always said parents are the first teachers that children have. They're the most important teachers that children have. They're most critical teachers that kids have. And certainly today, parents are the most important teachers to address these issues that are generating themselves from the streets and from history and coming to our doorstep as a family. So that's where we are today, and the general topic is cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence. That includes ethnic intelligence, racial intelligence, language intelligence, social intelligence, and so on. So cultural intelligence is a pretty general term, but it's one that we as a family need to think about and need to address and need to have some family time around issues related to culture and what's going on in our culture today, but to do it in a manner that is intelligent and to teach your children the intelligent way of addressing culture. So really, it's the issue that parents are the teachers. Parents are the teachers of cultural intelligence, intercultural intelligence. So what we will do today is take a look at what parents can do to teach their children the issue of intelligence within the culture in which they live. So we have some very specific ideas and things to share with you as a parent, so you can pick up some skills and some tools as you work with your child at home, so that child, your children, become culturally sensitive and culturally wise and culturally interactive and culturally helpful and obviously culturally intelligent. Okay, now, before I do that, let me just do a little bit of advertising here just a minute. I'd like to have you just be aware of the parenting class that we have put together based on this book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. So I wrote the book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent, and now we have put it on an online class. So you take an online class, which means you read a portion of a book, some of the chapters that I've outlined in my book. You don't read it all, but just maybe certain chapters. And then you listen to some of the podcasts I have done on topics related to parenting. And you work through that. You have a whole year to work through it, if you will. But it's set up so you do one class a week or as often as you want to so that you can become a better parent. It's offered through the school, Fresno Pacific University. And at the end of the course, you get a certificate. So it's online. You do it at home. Do it whenever you want. So you can access it just there by looking at the little brochure that's in front of you. And I encourage you, as a parent, to just pick up that course and just kind of work it through over the course of the next number of months, maybe all summer. Just take one chapter every once in a while and work it through and learn some of the better parenting skills that are out there for you and that I've brought to your attention and recommend. So that's Parenting Better, Fresno Pacific University. Now, I've also given you a opportunity to be aware of the book that I wrote, and this is really relevant for what's going on today. It's the psychology missive, but the subtitle is what's important. Law Enforcement Officers in a World of Stress and Violence. So this is a little book written basically for law enforcement officers, families of law enforcement officers, kids that want to become a law enforcement officer, students that are in school learning in criminology to become a law enforcement officer. The book is small, it's precise, but it brings to you some of the issues that are important in the area of law enforcement today, because we are living in a world of stress. Law enforcement officers have to deal with that, and we're living in a world of violence. Law enforcement officers have to deal with that. So it's an opportunity for you to enhance your understanding of law enforcement if you are giving any thought at all about becoming a law enforcement officer of some kind. You are one, or you have children that, you have grandchildren that are thinking of that, or perhaps maybe you are retired, you've been a law enforcement officer. This might be just a good summary of the profession that you were in, and so I recommend it to you. I can pick that up at Amazon. You can pick it up on my website, booksbyhedberg.com, www.booksbyhedberg.com. So pick up the book, The Psychology Missive, Law Enforcement Officers in a World of Stress and Violence. And I want to address a little bit that today as we look at the stress and the violence that's going on in our streets that are actually confronting law enforcement officers, and law enforcement officers confronting the stress and the violence on the street as well. So it's an interactive kind of a process that's going on, and we need to take a look at that. We need to have discussion. We need to have dialogue. So what I'm doing today is trying to bring some issues forward and ask you to kind of engage in dialogue with your family and with your friends and people you deal with around some of the issues that I'll be raising today as you deal with the issue of violence on the streets, violence in your community, and how we're going to enhance ourselves as a culture, how we're going to improve ourselves as a culture, how we're going to be more sensitive, how are we more caring, how are we going to be more helpful, how are we going to be more positive with each other, regardless of our background and where we come from. So that's the issue today. Now, let me put it into context, okay? A little quote that I do every week, and here's a quote for today that puts it into context. You see it on the screen there in front of you. If we cannot end our differences, at least we can help make the world a safe place for diversity. If we cannot end our differences, and we're not going to do that. We are different. We have differences. We aren't going to be the same. We have to deal with the idea that differences make up our world. Differences makes us great as a country. Differences make us more inclusive, more connected. We want differences. We encourage differences. Our whole country's national history is based upon people coming from different parts of the world and becoming one in the United States. E pluribus unum. That's our motto. From many, come one. And we become one as we come together from many different backgrounds. So if we cannot end our differences, which we're not going to do, at least we can help make the world a safe place for diversity. And that was by John F. Kennedy. So he recognized that diversity is part of our world. Diversity is part of our family life. Diversity is part of our personal experience. And we need to address the diversity in our community, the diversity in our school, the diversity in our church, the diversity in our neighborhood, the diversity within our family. We need to address that. We need to embrace the fact that we have differences, but the differences make us greater, not weaker. The differences make us stronger. The differences make us wiser. The differences make us more open and more welcoming and more understanding, if you will, of each other. So look at it from the diversity is a positive thing. It's a good thing. But we have to deal with it in a good and positive manner, as well, and learn how to live in the context of differences. Learn how to live in the context of people coming from backgrounds that are very different languages, different ethnic backgrounds, different value systems, and we can live together. We've done it for years and years and years. This goes back to the early 1700s, the late 1600s. So we've done this. We've proven it works. We've proven we can do it. And what's going on today is just one little glitch in the history of America. And when you put it in the context going way back into the 1600s, we have had conflict over and over and over again over the years. But we've come out of it stronger. And we come out of it more together. And we come out of it more advancing within our own communities and within our own families. So it's not a matter of avoiding differences, not a matter of being afraid of differences. It's a matter of embracing differences and making ourselves wiser and stronger and better, because we learn from each other when we bring our differences together and bring it around a table where we all can visit and can all talk. So diversity, that's where we are, today. So here's the question that I have for you as a parent. And it's one that you need to really ponder because it's an important question for you to deal with as a parent. That is, are you a teacher of your child's knowledge of cultural intelligence? Or another way of asking the question, are you a teacher that teaches, are you a parent that teaches your kids to be intelligent in the culture in which they live? So, are you wise? Are you engaging your children in the culture in which they live as compared to avoiding it, removing yourself from it, isolating yourself from it, being afraid of it? No, are you bringing together the culture of your community and your children? Are you able to do that? And are you doing that through the schools, through the help of your schools, through the help of the church that you attend, through the help of the clubs that you participate in, the help of your neighborhood and help of your neighbors, and so on? So are you embracing diversity as a parent? That's really the big question there for you. Now, it's true, we live in a world of diversity. Why? Why do we have all these differences? Why do we have all these, apart from the fact that people have different races and different language groups and different cultural groups they come from and so on, why do we have all these differences within our home and within our community and with our families and within our neighborhood and so on? Well, let me just give you a couple things, okay? Obviously, some kids are blessed by having good parents. Some kids are not blessed. They have parents that are not very good. They are not good parents. They don't know how to parent. In fact, they're bad parents. They're inappropriate parents. So parenting is a big factor in terms of whether you're going to come into a diversity situation and embrace it and be comfortable with it and learn it to live within it, or you're going to be afraid of it and fear it and break off from it. So parenting is a very important thing. The other thing is that some kids are raised in a home without a father. Some kids are raised with a father. Some kids are raised in a home with multiple fathers that have, over time, have come into their home, come and gone out of their home. That affects a child's view of culture. That affects the child's view of home and family. So it's not just the quality of parenting, it's who that parent is. And we have kids that have the blessings of a father, of a mother, of a father and a mother who know how to parent and know how to parent well. But if we don't have that, we start now to break off. We start now to create differences. Kids learn a different pattern of behavior, a different way of thinking, a different way of organizing their life, a different way of approaching problems, just on the basis of the parents that are in the home and are teaching them. Well, we also have kids that come from quality homes and quality educational systems. We have kids that come from educational systems of very, very poor quality. And because of that, we have diversity, extreme diversity, and we have often violent diversity. The question is, how can we improve our educational system so that at least there's a minimum quality life in the school level? We don't have that. Unfortunately, many of our kids are raised and educated within an educational system that's subpar, that's below quality, below even the basics. And because of that, we're going to have diversity on the street. We're going to have diversity in our community. We're going to have diversity in our families. and so on. And sometimes that diversity can get out of control, of course. We have homes that are single parent. We have homes that are the level of education of the parent is different. Some are very high levels of education, some are very low levels of education. Some no education, basic education, minimal education, advanced education. When you have kids coming from that kind of a mix of homes, we're going to have kids that are going to view the world differently from each other. And they're going to approach the world differently, from each other. That's why we have this cultural diversity. It isn't just the fact that we bring people of color together and put them into the same community. It's not that. It's the fact that they have been raised within the context of a family or a school system or a home that brings together and embraces each other or sets up a tension between one and another. It isn't the fact that you have funds. Sure, there are some families that have more money than other families, but that's not the issue. The issue is how we use those funds, how we use those funds on behalf of our children. Do we use those funds to advance our children, to educate our children in the best education that they can get? Or do we use those funds for our own personal advantage, our own personal selfishness as a parent? When I was in Canada, and we lived in Canada, every month, the Canadian government sent us $40 for a child. Everybody got that. We had, at that time, 2 children. We got $80 a month from the government of Canada. At that next weekend, we went downtown with our kids, and we bought them books with those $80. And we bought them movies, and we bought them different educational games and educational activities that they could then use in the home over the course of the next month. And then we did it again, and then we did it again. So, it isn't the fact you have funds or not. It's how you use those funds. And as a parent, the question is, how are you using the funds that you do have? Are you using them to advance your children educationally? Are you using them to advance your children spiritually? Are you using them to advance your child in the context of athletics or music or whatever skill might be possible with your child? It's the use of the funds. It's not the funds themselves. And as parents, we often take the first amount of money that comes in, if you get welfare, if you get some kind of supplemental income, and use it for ourselves. When in fact, the very first funds should be given to your children to make sure your children have the advantage of an advanced education through books and through movies and through CDs and various kind of things that are available in the marketplace, today. So it's that idea of cultural stimulation. Are you stimulating your kids educationally? Are you stimulating your kids in becoming aware of what they are like as an individual and the people around them and how they are different, but how the differences are to be embraced and the differences are to be encouraged and brought together, but not to be feared, not to be removed from. Obviously, we can live in a culture of fear. That's true. But we want our children to learn to live in a culture of trust and where they can be seen as a child that is protected and cared for and loved and respected and regarded well by not just the family, but by the neighborhood and the people that you have in contact in your life. So, do you have a home that's kind? Do you have a home that practices kindness? Do you have a home that practices acts of kindness to the neighbors? Do you take food? Do you take cookies? Do you take clothing to your neighbors when you know that they need help? Do you practice kindness? You see, cultural diversity is not just a word. Cultural diversity is taught. We teach our children that there are differences, but we also teach our children, that those differences can be a good thing and that you can benefit from those differences and you can be part of those differences. You can enjoy those differences. You can benefit from those differences. You can be just part of the differences that take place in the community in which you live. So it's not to be afraid. It's a matter of to be embraced and to make sure that you have your child go to a school that enhances and brings up and improves not just the academic abilities and skills, but the comfort level of being around people who are different. So that's cultural intelligence. Do you have a child that's intelligent? Are you teaching a child intelligently? Are you teaching a child to be aware and to be sensitive and to be kind and to be thoughtful and to be gracious, to other people? Cultural intelligence. Are you teaching that? Are you a teaching parent? So that's really the question. And I put the question formally in this way. Will your child be prepared to approach those of another culture to ease tension and build relationships for the future good of each other and the community? So that's what your task is as a parent. Be prepared to teach your child to embrace and to improve and to enhance and to make better the world in which they live, the community in which they live, the school which they attend, the church which they attend, the friends with whom they have associations, and so on. Okay, now from this point of view of cultural intelligence, here's what I like to do. There are 4 components, and I'd just like to share those with you and bring to your attention 4 areas of importance for you as a parent to teach your child. These 4 components are what you teach. This is your curriculum as a parent. This is your mandate as a parent. This is your goal as a parent. This is your task as a parent, to teach these 4 components to your kids so that you make sure your kids are wise and intelligent in these 4 areas of their life. And when they are, and if they are, then that world in which they live will be enhanced. That world in which they live will be strengthened. It will be a much better world because you taught your kids these 4 component behaviors of life. Okay? Let me just start out here with the first one. Very important, okay? It's what I call the personality components. The personality components. And here's the personality components that are important that you teach your child. The first one is respectability. You teach the child that all kids, all their friends, all their siblings are created as equal, as human beings. Each has their own uniqueness, but everyone has a starting point of equality. We all start out neutral. We all start out innocent, and we want to respect each other. We want to teach respect. We want to teach our children to respect their brother, their sister, their aunt, their uncle, their grandparents, and so on down the line. In the same way, we want to teach our children to respect the neighbors and their peers and their friends and their teachers and whomever else they have contact with in the course of any given day. It's respectability, to treat people with respect. That's what your job is as a parent. You want to instill that personality trait within that child, within your children, the trait of respectability, and to see people as unique, but to have respect for them, positive regard, for them. That's number one. Here's number two, tolerance. Tolerance is a very important factor. To approach other people with an acceptance, to not be judgmental, to be open, to tolerate differences, to expect differences, to not demand that somebody behave in a certain way or not behave in a certain way, but to allow people have their own personality, allow people have their own lifestyle, and to respect them, but to have tolerance for them as well. To be able to live among people who are different and not judge, not demand, not debate them, not squelch them, not criticize them, but to be accepting and allow people to have their own life. And as they allow you to have your life, people get along. Diversity then works together. Diversity then works fine together. We have to have respect for each other, and we have to have tolerance for each other. And your job as a parent is to teach respectability and to teach tolerance, to your kids for others. Okay, here's the third one, what I call optimism. Look for the good and look for the positive components. Kind of have a cautious optimism. Be careful, but be optimistic as you approach other people. Look for the good in other people. Other people have bad traits, that's true. But other people who have bad traits also have good traits. There are good components, positive components in everybody, even if they have negative components and disgusting components and fearful components or whatever it might be. Optimism is what you want to teach your child, to look at other people and see the good, see something good, see something positive. And you know, when you see one thing that's positive in another person, you often then see the second, and then you often see a third. So there is opportunity there to build up a sense of optimism between you and other people, between your children and their peers, but you have to teach that. It isn't, you don't born with it. They don't just acquire it. They learn it. It's a learned behavior. And they learn it by watching you be optimistic. They learn it by hearing you be optimistic, talking with you on optimism of other people. And then they practice it as they have engagements with their peers at school and the community and wherever they are. So optimism is another personality trait. You want to teach your child, if you want your child to be culturally intelligent, to be culturally wise, to accept diversity, to live among diversity, to live in the midst of diversity, optimism is required. Okay, that's number 3. Here's number 4, analytic thinking. You have to teach your child to ask questions. You have to teach your child to find out information about other people, to be inquisitive, to be curious about other people. Where there's dialogue, where there's discussion, ask your children how they do it, and then help them improve it. Give them questions to ask other people. Help them think of questions they can ask people who are different from themselves. And engage in conversation, engage in discussion. That's what you want to do. You want to avoid criticism, obviously. We don't want them to do that. But we want them to be open and learn. And you can only learn if you are analytic. If you have questions on your mind about other people, why they are different, why they do what they do, and how you do things differently, and why they speak the words that they speak, and the language that they speak, and the clothes that they wear, and the background that they come from. And I mean, you ask questions about all that. That's inquisitive information. And you want to teach your child that that's fair game, that that's good. Because what comes from that is learning how people are different, learning why people are different, and then feeling comfortable about that. And having that sense of acceptance and optimism and tolerance, for people who are different. But you have to engage in discussion. Teach your children how to talk, how to ask questions, how to answer questions. So there's an openness there in terms of being able to have an analytic view of the community in which they live, the school in which they go to, and the neighborhood in which they live, and so on. Be a questioning person. Teach that as a parent to your kids. Now that leads me to the next point, teachability. Obviously, you want your child to be open, to learn, to be open to learning. But you want them to be eager to learn as well, to be interested in learning, to approach a new situation from the point of view, what can I learn from it? How can I gain from it? How can I benefit from it? What can I learn from a person? What can I learn from somebody that's different from me in color, different from me in language, different from me in historical background? What can we learn from each other? How do we teach each other? How do we engage in each other's behavior? You need to teach your child that. You can't wait for somebody else to come along and teach that. That's your job as a parent, to teach your child to be teachable, to learn, to have that openness, that learning interest, that curiosity to learn from other people, about other people, and about other people's background, and other people's culture, and other people's history. That's what your job is as a parent. And now here's the next one. I call it fear control. Fear control. Do not be fearless. It's not the absence of fear, but it's the idea of fear under control. fear under control. You want to be able to make sure that your child is curious enough to overcome the fear and engage other people, to be around other people who are different. You see, we tend to be afraid of people who are different from ourselves. People who are in a wheelchair. There's always a fear of maybe saying something that will offend them, or we don't want to do something that might upset them. So we have that kind of sense and so we stay away. When in fact we ought to approach people in wheelchairs and engage people in and be taught by people in wheelchairs and have an optimism and have a tolerance for people in wheelchairs. People who are different in skin color, different in language background, different educational levels, different occupational levels. You see, it's that idea of overcoming your fear and engaging in people who are different from yourself rather than avoiding people who are different than you and different from yourself. So here's the last one, intrigue and inquisitiveness. You want to teach your child to find out about other people, getting to know you, getting to know all about you. Remember that song? That's what it's all about. Teaching your child to know that there's something to be learned and just to be inquisitive, to be curious, to ask questions and to open their mind and to try to learn something from other people. So those are the personality components. Now, as a parent, that's your job. That's your mandate. That's your opportunity. That's your task. That list is what you need to do on a daily basis in the home so that your child, as he gets older and grows and becomes part of a community and becomes part of the world in which he lives, will approach the world from the perspective of these personality traits and components. He will be respectable of other people. He will be tolerant towards other people. He or she will have optimism, will have ability to think analytically, will be teachable, will have fear under control and be inquisitive. You see, that's what you're trying to do as a parent. So I encourage you to put those down, write those down, put them on the refrigerator, and make sure as a parent you have a perspective on teaching kids to become a person of quality. A kid that is comfortable with diversity. A kid that is able to engage in diversity. A kid that is able to approach people who are different, not avoid. That's what you're trying to do as a parent. That's your task. Okay, I'm going to take a break here and come back in just a couple minutes. And we're going to pick up another topic of cultural diversity and what you as a parent need to teach your child. And here's the issue. It's what I call visceral components, the emotional part of diversity, the emotions that we experience when we're people who are different from ourselves. So we're going to talk about how you bring your emotions under control and what you can do as a parent to help your child control emotions when they're in a situation in which they're afraid or a situation in which they are different from somebody else. See you in a minute.
When you need a dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com.
Hey!
Try to close the club.
Tanya, come here.
At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps
4,
or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness. About making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Okay, welcome back, and hope you had a cup of coffee, and now can join me in the second part of Dr. Teach Me to Parent. We're talking on this general topic of cultural intelligence. And you as a parent, that's your responsibility, is to teach your children to be culturally intelligent, to be culturally sensitive, to be culturally wise, to be culturally interactive, to be culturally approachable. You want to be the teacher of your kids so they feel comfortable in a world that is different from themselves, but have tolerance for it and have understanding and have activity and have the opportunity to influence others at the same time. Now, we're based this on my book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. You can get that in the book form and just read the book. I would be very happy for you and to do that because you would pick up some great skills as a parent if you can pick up that book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Amazon or my website, www.booksbyhedberg.com. No, but you can pick it also up online. It's now available online entitled Parenting Better. It's offered by Fresno Pacific University. It's an online course. You can take it at your leisure, take it over the course of a whole year if you want. Take one section per week, however you'd like to do it, or just pick and choose and learn some of the concepts of better parenting so that you are a better parent and that your kids will be better kids as a result of you being a better parent. Better kids have better parents. So that's why we've titled this Better Parenting, and I give it to you as an online opportunity. And you can access it there by the brochure that's there in front of you. Now, we've been talking already regarding this idea about cultural intelligence, and that you as a parent, your job is to teach your children to be intelligent, but to be in a culture, to be a culturally intelligent person, to be wise and to be sensitive and to be caring and to be open and to be interactive with the culture in which they live. Diversity is among us. We do not have equality. We will never have equality. Don't think that way. Think that we have diversity, and that is a good thing. It's a wise thing to live in a world with diversity and where there are differences, because it brings color to our life. It brings fruit to our life. It brings joy to our life. It brings enrichment to our life. It brings stimulation to our life. It brings opportunity to our life. Learning from each other is enormously positive kind of thing. And you as a parent need to teach your child to embrace diversity, not be afraid of it, to learn from it, to be a teacher within diversity, to be a learner within diversity. That's your job as a parent. So today we're looking at some of the ways that you can do this as a parent. And I've just outlined some of the things you want to teach your child, the personality components that you want to teach your child to have. And we just walked through 7 of them. Now here's the next section, okay? I call it visceral components. The visceral components have to do with emotion, okay? So first of all, make sure your child is non-reactive, to be non-reactive. When they are with people who are different, when they are people who are strange to them in some kind of way, do not hold them back. Do not hold their feelings in, and do not hold their feelings back and then later blow up. But to deal with the issues in an orderly manner. Make sure that there is a non-reactive pattern in your child. If the child is afraid, not just to blow up and to throw a temper tantrum, but to hold it in and then gradually talk about it, gradually express it, gradually live it out rather than to blow up. We do not want children to blow up. We want children to unfold what they're thinking, unfold what they're afraid of, unfold what they're scared of, unfold what is strange to them, unfold what is making them feel uncomfortable, so that you as a parent can deal with those issues in a timely way and in a positive way. That's what your job as a parent. Know what your child is feeling. Do not encourage the child to blow up or get mad or angry, but to talk about whatever it is that they're afraid of or that they are concerned about or experiences they're having at school or at home or wherever it is, so that they can that you as a parent can deal with them in a timely kind of way. Okay, be slow to respond. That's number 2. Be slow to respond. Help your children not react, but to respond slowly. To control their responses in a measured kind of way. To be thoughtful, in other words. What is the best way to handle a situation? What is the best way to deal with a situation? How can you do it better? How can you do it wiser? How can you do it more comfortably, more respectably to other people? So the idea is be slow to respond. That's what you want to teach your child. Be slow to respond. If they have fear, not to just blow up and be excited and be anxious, but to take it easy, take a couple deep breaths, and then talk about it and deal with it with you as a parent and you as a parent with your child. So be slow to respond. Of course we get these emotions, and emotions have this way of flaring up real quick. But you want to teach your child to hold and then to talk, to hold and then to consider, to hold and then to learn, and to do what is the right thing to do in that particular situation. Here's another one. Keep the autonomic nervous system under control. Keep it calm. Now, the autonomic nervous system is the heart rate, digestion process, blood pressure, pulse, tension of the muscles, and so on. That's the autonomic nervous system, and you want to get that under control. You want to teach your child to be calm in that. So, in other words, how to relax the muscles, how to relax the body, to breathe slowly, to breathe deeply, to just be calm, to speak slowly, to speak fully, but not to let the adrenaline overtake the body. That's what we call panic attacks. But if you can teach your child that system of relaxation, taking the muscle system, and when it's tense, just let it go and let it relax in a very calm way, but also in a very slow way. Let the relaxation take place. You want to, whenever your child is tense, and your child is nervous, like scared and excited and is likely to blow, your word is relax. Your word to that child is calm. Your word to that child is take it easy. Lower it down. Lower the tension level. Lower the breathing rate. Let the muscles relax. That's what you do as a parent to help your child keep the visceral components of his body under control when under fear or when with people who are different than themselves. And then realistically minimize gestures and posture. You know, when we point our finger at somebody, there's that accusation kind of an implication message. When we have a fist that we hold up, whether you hold it up in the air like that or we hold it forward, that fist has a message to it. It's anger, it's violence, it's aggression, it's tension, it's fear. Do not teach your child to use fists and pointing fingers when dealing with other people and out in social events and situations. Those kind of motions are to be avoided. It's the open palm. That's a welcoming. That's an opening. That's a acceptance kind of emotion. So bring people together and not push people away. Don't drive people apart. Bring people together. And you can often do it through the bodily gestures that you put forth, the tension in your face, the loudness of your voice, the hand motions, the body tension and posturing and so on. Those are all factors, all visceral factors, and they all convey either that you're tense and fearful and scared and angry and mad and aggressive, or they convey that you're open, you're sensitive, you're caring, you're loving, you're accepting, you're welcoming. You see? It's one or the other. But teach your child to use body gestures, hand gestures, facial gestures, body tension in a manner that relaxes himself as a kid, but also relaxes other people that he's around. So that's the visceral components. Now, I'm going to move on to another one, which I call the cognitive components. These are the things you need to teach your child. We just talked about some of the personality factors you need to teach your child, some of the visceral ways that child can control his emotions. And now, what about some of the cognitive issues, the cognitive components? You need to teach your child how to think, okay? And that's what I like to do, is just kind of focus on a couple issues here about that. Study the cultural patterns of the people around you. I grew up in a community when I was a kid. There were Jews, there were Italians, there were blacks, and there were white. Pretty much a four-nation community in which I was raised. I went to school, went to high school, played sports. Those were the kids that I played with. That was my exposure. Well, what is the exposure of your kids? Study that. And then help your child understand the unique qualities of the culture of other people in their life. If they're around black people, then what is the cultural history of the black? Teach your child that. Talk about that. If your child plays with Italians, then what about the Italians would you want your child to know? And what are some of the things that they ought to know and should know to appreciate the Italian people? You see, that's what cultural components are. Cultural components are dealing with the culture in which you live, the unique aspects of that culture, and then learn it and be comfortable in it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. But be comfortable so you can interact with the people who are different from yourself. And then when you can deal with people who are from Italy, and you can deal with people who are Jewish, and you can deal with people who are black, and deal with people from other countries, and then you can broaden that and go out and deal with people from other countries and other cultures and other backgrounds. But you start at home. You start in your community. You start in your school. Who are the kids and who are the background? Who are the people? Who are the backgrounds that your kids associate with? I have grandkids. They happen to attend a church that is primarily Korean and Chinese. Well, that's cultural exposure. You need to know a little bit about the Chinese. You need to know a little bit about the Koreans. And then you become comfortable with them, and they become friends, and you're not afraid of them. And then when you meet Koreans on the street and you deal with them in business and so on, you're comfortable. You're able to do it. So your job as a parent is to teach the issue of cultural patterns of the people with whom they engage. Learn those patterns, enjoy those patterns, appreciate those patterns, not be afraid of those patterns, and embrace those patterns. Here's the second one. Know the contemporary issues of the people with whom you deal. the people around you. Do your homework. What are the issues that create a problem for other people or create an itch for other people? What is it that other people struggle with? Kind of find out what those are. It might be the fact that you have friends that have come from homes that are fatherless. That's an issue. What's it like to live in a home that's fatherless? What's it like to live in a home that only one parent, or you're being raised by grandparents, or being raised by some foster parent type of situation? You see, get to know the people that you associate with and some of the things about their culture, their background, because then you can understand them better, you can appreciate them better, and you'll be a better person to them and with them, and you'll let them come into your life and teach you. It's that openness, it's that interaction, it's that learning from each other, that diversity. That's what diversity is all about. It's not an issue of color. It's not an issue of language. It's not an issue of sexuality. It's not an issue of identity. It's an issue of difference. And difference needs to be approached from a point of view of being an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to be taught, an opportunity to be enriched, an opportunity to be better. That's what diversity is all about. We want to engage diversity. We want to embrace it. We want to welcome it. And we want to be taught by it. Here's the third point. Know the history trends and the events of the people with whom you deal. What is the history of the people around you? If you deal with black people, you need to understand a little bit about slavery. You need to understand that. You need to study it. There was a lot of good slaves. There were a lot of good slave masters over the years. Lots of good ones. There were a lot of bad ones. You need to understand that. You need to appreciate that. Just the fact that somebody had a slave is not a good thing or a bad thing. It's how they treated the slaves. I've read many, many books upon our historical leaders that had slaves. Many of them were not very good in treating their slaves, but many of them, most of them, were very comfortable and very positive in how they treated their slaves. Brought them into their family, ate at the table with the family, went to church with the family, played with the children of the family. They were a family member. They were welcomed into the family. Jonathan Edwards is one such historical figure. He loved his slaves. He embraced them. He brought them into his family life. He brought them into his church life. He even created a way in the church that he attended that the church welcomed them and made them members of the church. You see, slaves were treated very well by most people. But unfortunately, our media and our press and so on glorifies all the bad stuff that has happened to slaves and to the black people over the years, and there's a lot of it's pretty bad. But we have to also know that just because somebody is black does not mean they come from a background of slavery or they come from a background of bad slavery. They may come from a background of very positive experience in the slavery industry that was going on back in the 1700s. So have an openness. Have an openness. Learn about the people. Learn about the history of the people with whom you associate. If you associate with the Jewish people, learn about the Jewish culture. Learn about Israel. Learn about the Jewish faith so that you can talk, you can interact, you can feel comfortable. That's cultural diversity. That's cultural intelligence, you see? Okay, that's number 3. And here's number 4. I'm going to just kind of bring it to a head here. Social components. The social components are these. Help your child learn to be slow to speak with a soft voice, to initiate contact, to be assertive and to open up and to engage other people, and then to persist. Follow through. Make social contact something that you can start with and then continue and become friends and become associates and become part of their life as they become part of your life. You see? That's what social intelligence is. That's what the social component is. Speak slowly to people. Speak friendly to people. Speak softly. Speak in a engaging kind of way. A fearless manner. Use gestures that are friendly, that are open, and are engaging. And make sure that you just persist. You don't make friends in a day. Friends are made over time. You have to be persistent. That's social intelligence. So there you are as a parent. That's your job. Your job is to teach your children social intelligence, cultural intelligence, intercultural intelligence, racial intelligence, diversity intelligence. Call it whatever you want, but that's your job. Don't be afraid of it. Engage it. Be open to it. And let your children benefit from your willingness to teach them to be socially wise, culturally intelligent. Here's the quote for the day for you to take with you. By burning Luther's books, you may rid yourself and your bookshelf of him, but you will not rid men's minds of him. Let me just make sure I say that one more time so you get it. Read it in front of you there. By burning Luther's books, that's Martin Luther. By burning his books, you may rid yourself of your bookshelves of him, but you will not rid men's minds of him. Take away the books, you still have Martin Luther's thoughts and ideas and words and teachings well engraved in all part of history. You can't take that away. You might take the statue of George Washington down, but you still will have the teaching and the history and the experience and the life pattern of George Washington to honor and to respect and to hold up as a model, as an example. Nice to have you with me today. Thanks for joining me. And see you next week. Bye for now.